All right. And I have 6 o'clock, so whenever you are ready.
I'm ready.
We can go ahead.
All right. You recording?
Good point. Yes, let's do that. Okay, now they've changed theirs. Record.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, the April 2022 meeting of the Board of Commissioners for the South Whidbey Parks and Recreation District is called to order at 6:01. We have a quorum present. Is there anyone for public comment?
Let me just double check here. John Bush was on the line. I don't know if John wants to comment or not tonight. John's got his hand.
Please. Well, may I proceed?
You may, please.
Okay, I'm guessing you're all actually there in person. I see no other video, but if you are, hallelujah, glad you can do this in a much more humane format. I want to thank all of you for all of the diligence that results in the programs you sponsor in this community, which, as we hopefully exit the epidemic, are instrumental to our shared recovery. Also, since Trustlands Trails are again on the agenda, we want you to know how much we appreciate your fidelity to the terms of the trust land transfer documents when the property was deeded from DNR to SWPRD, as reflected in the stewardship resolution you passed in addressing preservation of habitat, privacy, and class of trail development. That concludes my comments. Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you, John.
Okay.
All right.
We have no one else here, so that would probably conclude public comment.
All right, we will move forward for the approval of the minutes. Has every commissioner had an opportunity to review the March minutes? Are there any questions? I have one.
Gentlemen, go ahead.
So under section 3, approval of the minutes.
I have changed that.
Okay.
To February.
Okay, great. That's all I had.
Good catch.
It's corrected on the line of writing.
Perfect, thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
No, you gotta make the
We
motion.
gotta
honey.
Oh,
How about
I
if I
thought you
motion?
meant go for it.
I'll motion to approve
Okay.
the minutes.
All right, and then I'll second that.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to approve the March 16th minutes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Jacob.
And Matt, aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, the motion passes, and the minutes are approved.
Okay.
We'll move on to the next order of business, which is the treasurer's report. Matt, are you leading us through?
I am.
Perfect, you're up.
Okay, hold on, just let me get it up. All right.
I'll wait till Doug shares it.
I don't know why it's doing that. Can you see it, Matt?
Not yet. It indicates that no screens are being shared.
Hold on, I don't know why it's doing that. It should be up, it's up on the first slide, Matt. Can you not see it?
Yeah, no, the GoToMeeting indicates that no screens are being shared at this time, but I can talk to it. And
Hold
so
on.
you've got the,
That's,
yes, you've got the, you've got the, sorry, if you've got the overall slide on the screen. So what you see is overall, oh, there we go. Now your sharing is working.
yeah.
I'm just seeing your, agenda yet, not the slide. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Almost. There you go. You're back on the first slide.
Yep.
So yeah, so what you see here, you remember last month we were 10K unfavorable to plan based on the program refunds for youth basketball cancellation or modification, and the fact that we were almost $30,000 light year over year on levy revenue. So you can see we've turned that 10K unfavorable to 3K favorable this month. What the biggest driver in that has been, we've recovered about 16,000 of that levy shortfall. You'll see that reflected in the revenue slide. So we're just now stood favorable overall. So if you go to the revenue, we can look at that.
It's up now, Matt.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see it. Yeah. So you can see we were almost 30,000 below forecast in revenue last month. You can see we recovered again 16,000 of that in the M&O levy, and that's contributed to us regaining favorability overall. Next slide, you'll see the expense picture. Again, expense control has been what saved us, and what brought us positive 19,000 in expense favorability. And you can see the spread there. So that nets to the 3K positive. And now the next slide shows the fund balance impact, which on plan. So that was all well easily accommodated in the normal fund profile for the M&O. So any questions on that? Okay, if no questions, you can pull the vouchers.
Okay, so since this went out on Friday, here's the things that have been added. We did our payroll, which we like to pay our folks. It's a good thing to do. We had the invoice for the special election. It was more than what we expected, but since we are not doing the bond issue, we had budgeted 30,000, so we're only a little bit over what we had budgeted for the year.
And that says 31,978,
60, correct, yes, and I can address that in a minute and kind of give you more of the breakdown. I did send out an email on the report that we had from them. So you can also see there's some tissues and sports field equipment, and we canceled the flicker service and got a small refund. And then just the rest of the payroll, monthly contributions, PERS, and payroll taxes, labor and industry taxes, paid family medical leave insurance, and unemployment insurance. So all things to do with employment. Any questions on any of those? Yes.
So there was polar bear dye shirts a second run. Was that because we had so many folks, or was there?
That's typical. We do that almost every year.
Okay, so it was a good thing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's rather than having a bunch of leftover shirts.
What was the projected cost for the election again?
So the election was really tricky, and we were looking at it today, and it's very, very, it's based so much on registered voters in your district that it's really hard to predict. We knew there was going to be an increase. Normally, in past, our elections have cost us between 6,000 and 15,000 max. But now the county is required to bill us for a printed mailer that goes out, for any other printing that's done, for time to come down, gas to come down and collect the ballots. All of that stuff is now billed to the local jurisdictions. Now, let me just see here if I can pull it up real quick. What they sent us was what they sent us was a bill that just said special election, $31,978 and whatever cents. And both Carrie and I were like, we'd like a breakdown of that, please. We're not going to just pay that, out of hand. We need to see what we're paying for and understand it a little better. So where's it?
Yeah, I was able to glance at that online.
Yeah.
I had forgotten what the projected amount, what we thought it was going to cost.
We had predicted, what we had budgeted was 15,000 per, and that was based on looking at it and going, we're not going to be alone on the ballot. So what they told us last year was that $60,000, the Camino Stanwood School District had put something on the ballot, and they were the sole person on the ballot, and it cost them $60,000 to run that. The total bill for this election was $174,000. Okay, so that's broken down a little bit here, the total. And then what we looked at, and what I maybe erroneously, I know now erroneously, kind of assumed was, well, we're on the same as South Whidbey, so any cost for South Whidbey, we're going to split. But it doesn't work that way. Because they can't do that. Because if you think about it and go, okay, well, South Whidbey School District and South Whidbey Park District are the exact same boundaries, but if the Langley City Langley runs something, they're within our boundaries, but they don't encompass all of our boundaries. So they can't just go and split that way. They basically take your number of registered voters, the number of issuances or ballots that you have on that ballot, and then they have this formula that the state runs to kind of give you this breakdown. So when we're on the ballot with South Whidbey Schools, we get the same exact bill as South Whidbey Schools. Oak Harbor School District got a bill for $51,993 and failed their bond issue. So at least we were successful.
Yeah.
But so we now know a little bit more about how this works. And thankfully we budgeted almost enough, and we're not doing the bond issue, so we can cover the cost in our budget. But yeah, I mean, I was anticipating looking at 60,000 for just having one thing on the ballot. I was not anticipating it being 30,000. I think I've gone and even been, I was trying to be generous and go, okay, well, if we're one of 5 entities on the ballot, we should probably, it's not going to cost that much more. There's set costs for putting a ballot out. But you can see on here, the printer was $46,000, supplies and envelopes were $39,997.
Where did they go for those?
But that's universal. They're not picking and choosing. It's just that that's what they're charging.
That's what they charge.
Yeah.
There's
no choice involved.
There's no real, we don't have it's not like we can go and solicit a different
Right.
company on this.
Right.
We go through this county and the state, so we don't have a choice. But I think what we need to keep in mind is we're going to put something on the ballot, we better be damn sure it's going to be successful. And worth spending tax dollar money. I think this was worth the tax dollar money. The other thing we want to probably look at is seeing if we can get breakdowns of costs for elections in November, elections in August, and just get all this information when we're budgeting for our next bond issue and our next measure, so that we know, okay, well, when there's nobody else on the ballot, it would cost us X amount of dollars to do this.
$175,000.
Not necessarily, because they're not printing as much printed material, they're not getting as many of the supplies and envelopes and software and hardware maintenance, probably the same, but supplies and envelopes, so certain items are going to go down. They're not getting out, postage will go down, they're not getting as many sent back in. If it's only us, if they're only coming to the south end to collect those ballots, not going all over the island.
Yeah, but we still have 17,000 for office space, another 10,000. I mean.
Oh yeah. It's my guess is we're probably looking at about a $64,000 to $65,000 bill if we're alone on a ballot.
Yeah, because this one we had South Whidbey. It's like cut our bill in half since we have a school district.
It did not.
Oh,
So they take the total, that's the total cost of the election, 174,000 right here. 174,000, so if you look at the bottom, right over there on the bottom right corner, $174,134.07 was the total cost of this ballot. Soup to nuts. We paid $31,978.60. The same exact amount that South Whidbey School District paid. And that is because we have the same constituency, same number of registered voters, and we had the same number of measures on the ballot.
so if the school district was not, we would have paid twice what we did roughly. No, we would have paid.
Well, no, if the school district wasn't on, it would have been divided between the four others.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm on the same page.
So now it basically just goes by the weighted factors here. So you see, Coopville School District only has 8,600 voters, but they had 3 issuances on the ballot, so they get multiplied by 1.4, so their weighted factor goes up and all of this, and they ended up, even with almost like just over half our voters, paying almost as much as we did. They were only about $5,000 below us. So it really comes down to, if we're gonna do something, we need to, be very, very calculating about what we do, because we wanna be good stewards of the public's money. We wanna make sure if we're gonna put something on there, that it's something that the public definitely supports and votes for and goes through. So, like I said, it is fortunate that we did budget 30,000 and the board decided not to pursue the bond this year. And that's going to cover that cost. We've already got it budgeted in. So it's doesn't cover all of it, but a $2,000 hit I'll take versus a $18,000 hit. So that's where we're at there. So any other questions on that bill?
Interesting.
Yeah, and I would say, Jake, we, as you see here, these details we did not understand when we went into the budgeting process. So that's a miss by us. Now we know, and so we can do the math for the next budget cycle and for the 5-year projection much more accurately. And you can see here, like that fixed cost sharing that they're doing, it's to your advantage to have more than one ballot measure on the ballot, because you get the rest of the folks with a single ballot measure pay an unfair proportion if you look at the way they do the math. So interesting things to learn here, and I think we'll be much sharper when we project in future years, now that we know their cost plan and their cost sharing plan.
So yeah, I think we learned a valuable lesson, and while it dinged a lot, I thought we were going to save about 15,000. It could have been much worse. I will say, I think this is going to be a really hard animal to predict. It always was, but now it's a much bigger hit. When it was 6 to 12,000, okay, so we're off by a few thousand, it's not a big deal. When we're off by more than 10,000, that's a big deal. We don't
Because
have
you said at the beginning, they're actually allocating more costs than they have historically.
Correct.
Okay.
The postage, the printing of that pamphlet was normally done by the state, so we didn't absorb that cost. So you can see the printing was almost $47,000. That right there, you take that out, and suddenly we're probably down under, we're well under 30 would be my guess, probably down closer to 25. So it is state requirements, but then, it's just a question of what tax dollars you're taking to spend on an election. Is it the state tax dollars or the local tax dollars? And it really, if we're putting something on the ballot that's for a local entity, logically, cold logic, you'd say, okay, well, then the local entity should probably be paying that. So, so that's where that is. And if nobody has any other questions, we can move back to where we were.
Any other questions on the vouchers from anyone?
I don't have a question on the voucher, but just on the report. So I think this is, we've been attending meetings online.
Thank you.
The last 2 years, so I've been able to look very closely at the treasurer's report on my screen as opposed to from a distance on a wall. So,
Sure.
and I was, preparing using the older report. So, maybe a little different timing on this report, or perhaps it can be printed out, or
Which, the one that,
The
Matt
voucher list or the
yes, yeah, exactly. It's
So
just, I can't
you'd like these
see.
slides printed out?
Yeah, I think that would help me.
Yeah.
If I have to digest information kind of on the fly, I need to be able to see it a little clearer.
Sure.
Either
Definitely.
that, or if I could have the information in advance,
Yeah.
then
And
I
what-
can digest it and then look at it small up on the wall.
Right. One of the things that I'm looking at with Sky is the idea of becoming more paperless and having an iPad or something in front of each of you here that the district owns that we just upload all the documents to, and it's right there in a file folder for you. You just click on it and open it up. If that would work in the future, but at this point, yeah, we can get paper to print and look for it. That's not a big deal.
I'm getting old, seeing that.
Yeah, and I mean, and Krista, I think to your kind of other real point, I think Carrie and I can take for action a process improvement where we try to get the treasurer's report final published along with the board meeting announcement. That'll be an improvement. It might take us a month or two, but that'll help.
So, I'm having a little hard time. So, when it comes Friday, is that soon enough?
That is,
So, it was there Friday, did you?
Right, but she's looking for Matt's updates.
right,
Oh.
Right, 'cause
He wants to
what we
see
get on
slides.
Friday is never what we see on Wednesday.
right,
Oh,
exactly,
okay, thank you.
exactly.
So Matt is sending me an email.
Yeah.
That improvement to get that by Friday,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
which would be nice.
yes, yeah. So Carrie, like I said, Carrie and I will work on that as a process improvement. So suggestion taken. I think it's a good idea.
Thank you.
So just as a background thing, a process item, so we can't do that report until we received the Island County Treasurer's report. That gives us the figures mostly for the taxes that we received. So until we receive that, we can't do any of the other items. And so some months, it means it's very close, and that's why sometimes I'll say that'll be posted on Monday or.
Okay,
Yeah.
So just so you know, that's a little background. So if you see that the 10th is anywhere near to the board meeting, then you'll know it's going to be a hard time to get it early.
So, and in those instances, if we can't get the updated map version on Friday, what we will do is we will print it up and have it here for you.
or even if you just broadcast it to us on Tuesday, I mean.
Yeah, something.
Okay, we'll figure something out.
Tuesday would be
Well, I just
okay,
think
too? Yeah.
well, Tuesday would be okay, but sometimes people don't get a chance after
Yeah.
the weekends to look at stuff. You know, I mean, we've got busy, apparently people have other lives. I'm not really sure how that works, but, if that, regardless as a backstop, we will have paper copies available, you know, and ready for those board meetings where we can't get it out. Just ready for the packet.
Thank you. I feel very heard. Thank you.
Good. Okay, if there are no other questions, I'll make a motion to approve the voucher listing for the M&O fund for the amount of $102,173.39.
I'll make a second for that motion.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to approve the voucher list in the amount of $102,173.39. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Krista, aye.
Jake, aye.
Matt, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, the motion passes, and the voucher list is approved. All right, the next order of business is the staff report. Doug?
Staff report, okay, through April 13th. So, you can see, good attendance at indoor pickleball, 13 sessions now, and then good attendance at, futsal. So 36 is the total over 3 sessions, 213 is the total over 13 sessions. We had intro to pickleball full on both times, and Puppy Foundation full, at 6 people. Or 6 people and 6 dogs. But, let's be honest.
Who's it about?
Who's it about? We do have indoor drop-in pickleball continuing. The summer activity guide, which those of commissioners that are in person attendance, you have in front of you, has been released. K9 Nose Work beginning foundations in advance is coming out starting April 24th. Outdoor drop-in pickleball again. May 2nd, when lesson registration begins May 2nd as well. I think I'm going to be weighing off that day. Is that okay with you guys? May 17th, we have age 40 plus 3-on-3 basketball drop-in. Futsal is finished until October. Starting an adult league is a possibility to allow for less line changes. Attendance got so high at times they didn't allow much time on court for the players, so we're going to look at some options there. Chum Run is set for Sunday, June 26th. We're now offering pickleball 5 days a week in May, Monday, Wednesday, Friday outdoors at the sports complex, Tuesday, Thursday indoors at the community center. Field usage is very high through early June. We have 9 baseball, softball teams through South Little League, plus the Crabs. We have 24 soccer teams through South Little Soccer Club, so great attendance going on there. We've set up these SWPRD.org/fields as a webpage for the field calendar. It's published every Monday for the week ahead, allows for real-time changes to be updated if necessary, and it's color-coded to help soccer, baseball coaches know what field they're supposed to be on. And then I wanted to have a big thanks to Eric for helping fill in during a couple of basketball skill sessions last month. Appreciate that, Eric. Facilities and grounds, Tom is, yes.
Just a quick question about the activity guide and what's coming up for summer. Did everything come back? Is it more or less? How does this compare? This is a joint question, I guess.
The things that I'd say are missing that we had in previous years, youth tennis, we're still looking for instructors. The instructors we had basically graduated off from college, got real jobs and don't have the time, so we're working on that one. Bird watching was one where we didn't have anybody.
And when you're referring to bringing back, do you mean pre-COVID?
A little bit, yeah.
So like our camps are missing. Our Earth Skills program is not happening.
Okay.
But we did a
Nature.
different nature camp through the Whidbey watershed stewards. So they'll be running 3 camps with us.
None of the tree climbing programs will be returning.
Archery didn't make it in there, but he called us, of course, like the day after it came out, and that's actually filled up pretty darn quick.
So it's on now, the archery.
The archery, yeah.
Cool.
Okay, facilities and grounds. I know Tom's not here. He's got a baseball game, I believe.
Yep, they just finished school.
So spring break is coming down, and we are now in the heart of full-on Little League and youth soccer usage, as we talked about field scheduling. Restroom and garbage cleanup daily has been noticeable, and total park usage seems higher than it has been in years. So people are coming out from the COVID and the dark insides, and when it's nice and sunny out, we're packed. Been working with King Water on the transition of our water systems. They're completing tests and water levels in the aquifer to provide for the water system plan to be approved. So yeah, he's been coordinating on the ground with people. I've been coordinating in the office and trying to get them to get the test results to us so we can submit them to Department of Ecology in the state and get our small water system management plan approved. We have a plan to play catch up or keep up with mowing and weed eating everywhere while working around the weather. I don't know. Everybody else probably has grass too. I'm doing the same thing on my property, trying to keep up with the mowing and weed eating. It's a non-stop thing. For me, I was able to connect with our grants manager at the RCO and start the final billing and final reports process on the Land and Water Conservation Grant for the Max Development Trails property to close that out. Still working that through because she came back with, well, you aren't billing for any administrative costs, which is Carrie's time and my time in administrating the grant. So I said, okay, well, I don't know how much hours I actually spent on this. So Carrie's done some calculation. I'm working on some calculation in the midst of preparing grant applications that are due 2 weeks from yesterday. So we're trying to get all of that done. So I I connected with Island County on the site plan review for the access to the trail to the property. Was told that I should have a document with feedback from them, that they've all reviewed it, and he's just putting it all together. And he said 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm going to check back with him next week. Actually, it probably won't be next week, because next week I'm just going to be swamped. So it'll probably be after May 3rd. And also connected with the county health department on the septic system design. Was told that the lady who reviews that is out of the office on a personal emergency, and went through and finally got a hold of her a couple of days ago, and she was going to look at it when she got back in the office. Said that she apologized. She said that everything's been taking a really long time because they've had such staff turnover at the county. Shocking. So that's moving, hopefully. Working through the grant applications with the committee, developing cost estimates, and looking for support letters. When I wrote this, I was down in Bellevue at the SWPRD conference, gathering more knowledge and connecting with vendors and other Parks and Rec professionals on the grant process, projects and other things. So down there, I was able to connect with pickleball experts. One guy is actually an official pickleball ambassador, and I sent them Matt's renderings and our plans with measurements. They said it looks great, everything looks wonderful. Cautioned us about, I believe it was the slope, to make sure that any water that gets on there will drain. And then the other thing that I learned in their session was the nets for pickleball are 36 inches. 36. They said get the shorter nets, 31, and just raise them higher so that when you're blowing off the court, you just blow right under the net. You don't have to like lift the net up. I'm like, well, that's brilliant. So learned that. I talked with Musco Lighting about getting lighting numbers for the sports field. I think it's Hellas Construction coming on Monday to look at the sports field layout. They are a company that does design, plans, builds sports turf fields. So from day one all the way through, they do it all.
H-E-L-L-E-S?
I believe H-E-L-L-A-S off the top of my head. So their rep, I've already sent him Matt's drawings. He's looking at those. He's going to come out, meet with Sky, Tom, and myself on Monday. I've got another contractor for sports fields coming out on Wednesday.
And wait, that's for the
sports turf.
The sports turf, okay.
Mm-hmm. So those were all connections I made going to conference. Really looking at the inclusivity of things as opposed to just being ADA compliant. Trying to make it so that everybody can get everywhere. I mean, I had a conversation too with, there's a gentleman that wants to put a dog park in, and his main site is the old middle school football field where he'd like to do it. I think Matt referred him to me, so he and I went and wandered around the park, and he found one spot, and he said, well, right here we can do it. It doesn't have to be big. But it is a very high slope at the top, right, basically across the road from where we're going to put the amphitheater in. There's a little grassy area that's high slope, and he said you could just do a small dog park there. And I'm like, well, then a person that's ADA, that's challenged, would have only a little spot that they could get in there with their dog, and then their dog's running around, but they're not really enjoying it. It's not fun for them. So I'm actually going to work with him and help him approach. He said Dan Poolman at the school district is the one that he can't get past. The other conversation I had with him is that the county has Marguerite Bronze Park, which is a dog park. He doesn't like that, but I said, well, rather than trying to create a whole new apple, why don't we try and take the apple that you don't like and make it into a gem? Like, let's talk with the county and maybe we can make improvements to their rules, their setup, what they're doing, rather than creating something totally new. He was not open to that, but that to me was probably the path of least resistance to get what he wants. So
I don't want the details, but was he specific in what he?
I believe his dog was in an incident there, and it was a bad incident. So he is not happy with the county rules on the dog.
Okay.
So.
And Jen, when he called me, that never came up. I just asked for the history, and he only went back to the football field idea, and he had taken that up, and the city had evidently given him at least a verbal that they supported the idea, and then he ran into the school, and it sounded good until he ran into Dan Pullman, who said no, and that was where he ultimately called me, and then I referred him to Doug. So I didn't hear any of the backstory with the Marguerite Bronze situation, so I can't comment on that beyond that without trying to reach back out to Eric and talk to him.
Right, and like I said, I mean, I did say to him, he asked me if I had any ins with the school district, and I said, well, I know Dan Pullman, but this is your baby. I'm happy to attend a meeting with you and kind of express that it's probably a good location for it, but I have no more sway than any other community.
You have no dog in that fight?
Well, I have a dog, but not in that fight.
Yeah.
I would say they put a lot of money into that field, that I know historically. So that may be the reservation in making it a dog park, is that football field got a makeover.
It's school district property, it's their decision as to what to do with it.
I'm just saying that may be part of the reasoning there.
Well, yeah, and Eric, just to paint the picture, what he described was not a park like Marguerite Bronze is a park, but a dog run that would be a fence along the sideline of the football field, where the dog run is outside the sideline along the blackberries, along that slope, and then around the back of the end zone of the football field in an L shape. And that's the dog park. It's a run that's L-shaped, and it's outside the sidelines and the end zone line of the football field. So it doesn't go on the football field footprint at all. At least that was his proposal to the school. So think of it in those terms. It's the idea was a run rather than an open park.
It was he said it could be a fairly small concept, and I'm like, well, my dogs they got a bigger yard. Their yard's bigger than that.
Yeah.
So,
However, for people who are living in Langley, it, it might be good, because not everybody in Langley has a yard that size.
Oh, absolutely.
Does the Marguerite Bronze Park, do they have a separate shy dog area?
Yeah, they do.
They do? Okay, I've only been there once.
I have not taken my dogs there, but there's also, I mean, Green Bank, I refer to Marguerite Bronze on the south end. I mean, you can go to Green Bank Farm as well. That's a lot more of a drive for everybody here, but. Double Bluff as well.
With Green Bank Farm, I think that's tenuous. I think at some point, the Port of Coupeville is not gonna want that to be a dog park anymore.
Probably not. And then upcoming, we do have the grant application deadline on the 3rd. We have our next regular monthly board meeting on the 18th. I'll take any questions on the staff report.
Doug, could you, since it's a change for the commissioners, could you, if you have it handy, pull up this third slide of the turf field rendering to show the field 1 concept? Since field 1 is a new thing, so in case people are getting questions from people out in the community or soccer club people, that we're all on the same page.
Yes, let me see if I can find.
And while Doug's pulling that up, Doug and Tom, as part of the review of the turf field layout, the original one that I showed, I think last meeting, came to a decision or a recommendation that field 1 by the road was actually a better candidate than field 4, because field 1 is the least playable and the most compromised in the winter, and it has infrastructure on field 4, drainage and irrigation, that would require more significant work to work around it or to mitigate for it. So those combination of factors said it'd be better to put it on field 1 than field 4. So then the question was, could I shift that same layout to field 1, and would it fit? And you can see from Doug's picture, it does fit just barely. So this is where it currently sits in the plan, is on field 1 like this. You can see just tucked up against the trees along the road, just tucked up against the hillside by the entry road, and backing up so that you're walking downstairs from the parking lot down to the field level on the parking lot side. So,
right. So
again,
just to kind of clarify, Matt, what Matt said. Tom and I went out to kind of look at everything at the field and kind of go, okay, first thing we're going to do is measure to see if it fit on field 4, because this is field 4 over here. It didn't. So we would have to, that pathway would have to be moved.
To make it fit on that.
To make it fit on that side. So that's number one. The second problem with that, underneath that pathway is our water main. So in order to put it there, we would have to deal with that. Third thing, bathrooms here have a septic tank right there. The septic line goes up at an angle to the drain field, so that would be under our turf field. Probably not a good idea in case there's a problem with that line to cover it with artificial turf. So Tom and I talked through, and then we went over and measured this side, and we went, okay, lengthwise, does it fit? 400 feet, yes it does. Widthwise, it was tighter, but if we dig into that berm, it fits. The people I've been talking to have been saying, basically, skin it, you can abandon the lines underneath it, build it on top of it, and the guy Ellis said it's like rock, gravel, sand, put kitchen on top of it, put the turf on top of it, cement curb around it, and you're done. I'm like, okay, well that sounds fine. Sounds easy when you say it that way. And when I talked to him about our drainage, the other cool thing is right up at the top of the field here on this picture, at this corner, is where our drainage line goes out to the pond. We could potentially take all the drainage from the turf field into that and make use of the existing drainage to take that water away. So just field 1, and then the other thing that Tom mentioned is this field right now as a grass field is the worst field. If we walk on this side of the field, right by the road, it is always wet, it is always mushy, and it's like, if we could get rid of that field becomes usable, and then the other 3 fields are usable much more of the year. So, just made a no-brainer kind of like, hey, let's move it here. So, that's what the new plan is. And then, as we're also closest to the power that's at the road, if we need bigger power for the lighting, which I don't know if we will because they're all LEDs now. So we're going to see how much power we need, but the power is right there at the road. The power line goes right underneath the ground there, right at the north end of that field, right at the top. So it's all right there. It makes so much more sense, and it's something that we think will go really well there. So
it seems like it totally makes sense, but my only reservation is, correct me if I'm wrong, but on the right side there, on the road side, isn't there a line of trees that have been planted that are it's a nice screen?
This runs, the measurement runs right up to the base of those trees. And what you see in that, on that apron there is, the idea is that that's grass, that there's a separator. Tom laid out a separation of 24 inches of gravel between the edge of the turf and that's just a flat grass area. And so that runs right up to the base of those trees. So this fits just inside the trees, and those trees end up staying there.
Yeah, I'm not against the idea, but one of the things that we talked about was having that another person suggested was a path of some sort encircling, a place for people to go.
Yeah, that's it.
And
that's what that green strip is, a 10-foot wide path that circumnavigates the field.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's hard to, like, Matt's done a pretty amazing job putting this together, but it's hard with this. I've tried with programs like this to do this. It's almost obligated to do exactly what you want. We really need a design firm to come and go, this is what it's going to look like when it's actually done on this site. And that's what I think Hollis does, and they can do, from beginning to end. They'll give us a budgetary quote, and we'll go, all right, this is what we're taking to do our grant applications.
I was just thinking, as years go on, looking at parks in Spokane where I grew up and noticing that what used to be a walking path became concrete, asphalt, common pathways, especially along roadways. It's a common place. Now Whidbey decides to create a bike path or a walking path for kids. you know, it's always gonna be right there in that very strip that we're talking about.
Mhm.
And I know there's alternatives to that, and I like the plan, that was my gut when I looked at it, you know, thinking about the future and how that plays out there. I played on that field, I've coached on that field, yes, that's by far the worst field, I would totally agree. So I think that part's great, and it gets more sun. The other one would have, without removing trees, would have got some shade, I believe, in the evening. When that sun drops down, it drops down there, and then you get shaded the whole way.
Mhm.
That was the point I was
In the
making.
summertime, yes.
In the summertime. Well, yeah, I agree.
In the winter,
In the,
in the winter, in the winter, the shade line goes right about to midfield, easily, on that field.
I'm talking about the trees on the
Yeah,
far
you're
side.
talking about the far side,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I get you.
And this one's gonna get more sun
Right.
overall, I believe.
Well, this one will be hopefully lighted, and we will be able to use it in the winter at night, so should be good.
Does this end come right up to the existing driveway right now?
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, it's just right at where the current fence line is. It runs right up to where the fence is.
Because there's a hill there too, isn't there, that drops?
There's a drop off, yeah.
On the back side of the fence, it drops down.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it would be a combination of probably bringing in fill, like I said, to put on top, and then cutting into that berm and getting rid of some of that soil and spreading it around. So yeah, it's
great.
It's exciting.
Yeah, the other thing, just so that everybody on the board is aware, Tom and Doug have had a good chance to go through, and obviously you can see a significant amount of review on the side of the staff to be able to decide where it ended up being. So that's one phase. Second phase was to get this out to the user group that Doug assembled, in particular the soccer club and the soccer board. So they have all had a chance to review and provide comments and provide input. For example, you see the bleachers that are shown there. That was the soccer club input that, you know, we just had the path around it from the original discussion, Eric, as you're talking about.
Right.
And they said, okay, what about seating and viewing and, you know, people coming wanting to watch in the middle of the field. So just so you're aware, the soccer board has had now 3 or 4 chances to review original drafts, and they were part of the move. They supported the move to the Field 1 area. And so anyway, just as you're touching base with people in the various user groups, be aware that they have all provided input to this and are on board with at least the general idea across that group of users. So I think that's one of the things I really wanted to emphasize, because the last thing, you know, they're obviously a key stakeholder in this. They're working on the numbers that we need for the grant application. They're working on the support letters, and they're marching right in step with us. So.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks, sir.
That fits perfectly. It sounds, I mean, really nice how it ties into the drainage and everything.
Yeah.
You don't have to dig up water lines.
Yeah, we definitely do not want to dig up water lines.
It doesn't seem like a maintenance nightmare.
That just, no. Anything else on the staff report?
All right, the next order of business is unfinished business, beginning with the comprehensive plan programs.
Comprehensive plan. So static water level test that the state has been asking for us to do has been performed. I reached out to King Water again. I didn't reach out yesterday. I was busy preparing for this, but I did reach out yesterday. Didn't reach out today. And I have been told that Sandra, who would get that to us, had been out of the office and was coming back in. It's like everybody's got vacation time or something.
And there's only one person who can do something.
It's apparently. So the test has been done. And now we have that coming back to us. There's a couple other little boxes I think we have to check. We have to get the Department of Ecology sign off. And I think that's what they're looking at the static water level test for. And then we're testing everything weekly, which we have been. Reading meters and all that kind of good stuff. We're going to get that information to the Department of Ecology, get their sign off. I think we have to do another little form or something. I'm not sure what that is, and that's what I'm working with Davido on. Once we get that done, hopefully we can get the small water system management plan done. And then hopefully we can go back to the county and hound them for site plan review to be completed. Yeah. So we really are running out of time. Yeah. Because the grant, for grant money, we can still move forward with campground, but we will not get any 50% back from grant money after December 31st of this year. Our grant time runs out, that's the clock. So that's what I'm trying to get everything done so we can go out to bid and get contractors moving. It's gonna be tight. I finally got a response from the health department. I already talked about the staff report on the campground septic design. They're reviewing that, and I'm hoping that we can move forward on that portion of it. And where we are in that. Grant applications. I just want to express concern. Right now we are working on 4 separate projects: amphitheater, sports turf, pickleball courts, and the aquatic center. Those entail 7 different grant applications. I am writing 7 different grants with help, but I'm still entering in all the data, I'm still plugging all the information in, and then when we get to the point of success on these, if we are successful on all 7, that means we're starting 4 different projects with 7 different grants for me to administer next year. That's a lot for our small organization. My recommendation would be that we narrow our focus, but I don't want to stop any of these projects because I think they're all really good. I would say of them, the closest to what I would say to be shovel ready are probably pickleball and then amphitheater. And those are also ones that have promised donation dollars as well in their field. Aquatic center, while we've got great information there, when I was filling out the Land and Water Conservation Fund forms, because they have actual forms where I have to talk about, will this be an impact to water table, or the water quality, or environmental impacts? I don't know, because we haven't gotten to that point in official design where we have all of that. Will we require mitigation? I don't know, because I know we've got wetland areas behind us. I don't know if we're encroaching into those. I don't think we are, and I believe we aren't, but there's other questions in there that I was literally like, I have no clue what the answer to this is. There is design dollars there, and I think that one might be more successful in 2 years. It could be successful right now. We've got great information. It's just, what do we want? And that's kind of what I wanted to put in the boards area. Sports turf, I'm getting numbers on. I don't have, that's the other thing with amphitheater. I don't have numbers on construction. I can't get anybody out to give me numbers on construction. I can do estimates right now and try and get somebody out. But those are kind of the balls I'm juggling. And right now, I don't know if anybody else is trying to get contractor work done on your house. Get a contractor out to do anything right now is really tough. And they are months out at this point. So I think we've got fairly accurate numbers for pickleball. They seem pretty good. Amphitheater, I think we can get close. Sports field, I've got guys coming out on Monday and guys coming out on Wednesday, so I should have numbers on those before we get in. The numbers Matt and his guys have done on the pool are pretty good, but we don't have a final design, so we really don't know what those final numbers will be. Mm-hmm. So.
But the guys coming out on Monday will also be able to give you kind of a ballpark estimate of what that would be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
okay. No, they are providing me with a budgetary quote.
Right.
So I can take that and go plug that in to the grant application process. Mm-hmm. And they have told me I'll have it by Thursday next week.
Okay.
So I will have numbers to plug in for that. Else.
And what about the amphitheater?
Amphitheater, I'm meeting with a couple of the guys on the committee on Monday, and we're going to try and go and hash out based on other things, other projects. We're looking at a smaller area of focus, but one of the guys is an architect, so he has some experience there. One of the other gentlemen on the committee has said he knows a couple contractors, maybe he can get one out before we need it. It's just I guess my biggest fear and my biggest joy would be we're successful on all 7. And that's awesome. But then I look at the next 3 years of my life and I don't know how we do it. There's just so much there.
I was under the assumption that the grants manager is going to give feedback on whether or not they feel the timing's appropriate for any of those?
I have not asked yet, because right now, the only numbers I actually have, it's really hard for me to say because I don't have, the numbers I put in, I've got numbers for pickleball, those are in the computer. I know Matt has some numbers for the swimming pool that I believe are fairly accurate, based on our general idea. I would like to put those in. I'm getting numbers for sports field, I'm getting numbers, I'm gonna make numbers for amphitheater. It's really a question of, getting people out and getting accurate numbers. And
But wouldn't that be the driver? I guess I'm asking more than anything that the grants manager says, hey, you know, I don't think this looks like it's.
There's nothing for them to look at yet.
Okay.
Because, I mean, they can look at pickleball and see the numbers we have for pickleball. The other grants are sitting with just empty lines that I've checked to go, we need to put something in here, we need to put something in here. Until I get those numbers in, and some of the pictures, I've uploaded some of the pictures, but I'm having a meeting with our grants manager tomorrow. Well, I'm looking for guidance from you guys tonight to say, should I just keep pushing forward with all 7?
But could some of that be driven by what you find out? So in other words, you meet with, who is it, Hellas on Monday, and they say, you know what, we're not getting these jobs done. We're 3 years out, we're 4 years out on it. Well, that kind of drives the decision that we would make anyway. What I'm saying is, it seems like as you get into the process, and I realize that not all those numbers are there, some are going to be more, like you said, pickleball in your mind, and in my mind, it seems like there's more numbers there and more shovel ready. That makes sense to me. So if the numbers are there and the timing's there, those are the ones you go with versus, okay, this one.
Well, but I would say we got to think about the criteria there, though, because one of the criteria that is a requirement for all the grant applications is they look at your comp plan and say, is your project included in your comp plan? And the one that's not is pickleball. So that we lose points on pickleball in that category. That's one of the primary categories. We'll be able to explain it, and we'll write the grant application around that, saying, you know, it's a rapidly growing sport. You know, it's changed a lot since we did the comp plan, and it's a 6-year plan, so it doesn't update that quickly. So, but it's not covered. And the other one that is low on the priority list, because we'll report on need and we'll report on survey results, is the amphitheater. You know, it's out of our 8 projects, it's somewhere down in the 7 or 8. So they may be shovel ready and they get points for that, but they lose points in other areas because we don't rank them that high, or we didn't even include them at all because it was not even a sport when we wrote the comp plan.
So how do we adjust?
Yeah, I mean, and my perspective is there's going to be some, and it's a good question, and Doug is right there. There's a lot of things going on. The grant applications, there are 4 projects. Because we don't have cash to match, we have to match a grant for grant. So, we're applying to the, grant A, and we're applying for the match for grant B. The applications, since they're RCO programs and they're RCO grants, the applications are very similar. So we're not duplicating, we're not writing 2 completely different applications for the pickleball. They're very similar. So it's really 4 grant programs. And the detail is there for sure. We gotta submit twice as many documents, but they're not all different. And there's going to be some metering of the funding over time because the programs are funded on different timelines. So, for example, the state money comes earlier than the federal money comes. So the LWCF, for example, with the pool project, comes almost an entire year later. You apply for it in 2022, it doesn't come to you until late 2023. So there's going to be some spread just because the programs fund on a different timeline. So to me, at this point, my own personal recommendation is that we plow forward. And if you need support to finish this or that, or to write this or that, just raise the flag, and the commissioners who are on those subcommittees will step up or we'll recruit people to step up, because I think it's in our best interest to bring those to the table now and see how they turn out. If we get bad feedback because they don't think our applications are ready, then that'll come through us in the technical review, and then we may decide in our June meeting that, hey, we don't want to put this forward because the technical review came back and said the application is not strong enough for the following reasons, and we're not going to be able to make it strong enough by the time we go to the full board. So I think, to me, I would say we push them through technical review, and then we see what technical review tells us. If they say, hey, you guys are really close, this looks great, then we know what to do. I think if they tell us, these are not as strong, and then I think that also gives us guidance. This is my opinion.
So, something, Matt, and it's a question I don't know why I haven't asked yet. Just on the LWCF grant, so we're matching grant per grant, and we have to provide 10% local match for those. So the pickleball courts came in, and the pricing that we have that Barry put together was $483,000. Okay, so 10% of that is $48,000. They've already raised and pledged $44,000. We're right there. Yeah. Okay, the amphitheater has $15,000 raised by SWPRD Road. Okay, don't know what that costs you. Sports turf, we're matching youth athletic facilities, which is up to $350,000, with WWRP local parks, which is up to $500,000. So that means we would have to come up with, to do the sports field, wow, doing math, $150,000 for one end, and then another, whatever the rest of the project cost, over $1 million. Okay, because we get 500,000, we'd have to match 10% of that. 150,000 would cover bringing it up to the 500, but then we're looking at 50,000 there and 50,000 there, easily less than 50,000, 35,000. We provide enough match at 150 and get us up to $1 million. That puts us at $1 million, but we have to come up with 150,000. I don't know where that's coming from. Okay. Now, if we're successful, we can then go for a bond issue, but we have to. 150. But it would be 150,000 plus whatever to get to whatever it costs. Last time I checked, which was years ago, it was about 1.2, 1.3 million for an artificial turf field to be installed. It could be more than that, and that was without lights. So, yeah, aquatic wellness center. The maximum we can go for in the LWCF, I believe, is 500,000 for a development, but I don't have to double check.
It's 500K. Yeah.
500,000. Now we do have the 400,000 we've been awarded in the state budget for this project, but that is for, I believe it's for design. Now, is that for design?
Yes, and that can be used as match.
As design match?
Yes.
Okay, but then we can't use it until we've successfully applied for the grant and been awarded the money. So we could not start the design process then until next year.
Yeah, and that's something that we will need to do as part of our review with the grants manager and figure out what are the puts and takes there.
Okay.
Because there's going to be the 2023 state capital budget. We will also have a sponsored project with our legislators for a larger dollar amount than the 400K. We're going to be applying for 5 million. And my guess is we're going to be in consideration for somewhere in that $3 to $5 million range. So we may decide that we do want to, even if we spend it early, the design, the 400,000 already allocated to us design, we may do it knowing that we've got a decent chance at state capital in early 2023, and the LWCF money would not come until the third quarter of 2023. So I think there's a lot of things in play there.
So, I mean, yeah, and I'm looking at the process of all this. Yeah, we don't necessarily need to decide tonight. We can push forward, we can press on, and I can, I don't want to get into a situation where I'm trying to administer, um, it, 4 different projects next year. We don't have the bandwidth. So, in the same process as doing design on the pool, that's a ton. And it's concerning. If we were a bigger entity and I was just in charge of planning only, it would be probably a great way to go.
What are the odds of all those grant funding coming? That you're going to get matched on every project?
So I'm going to give you the same non-committal answer I gave on the election funding and like election costs. We don't know. We don't know who's applying. You know, we could get in there and be one of 10 projects in YIF, and every single one could get funded. Or there could be 100, and we're way on the bottom. We don't know until you go in. So it's a question with all of these of, are we going to be successful? And then we can look at it. We could be successful in getting one grant but not the other, and then we have to decide what we do. So it's all a roll of the dice, and it's a good roll of the dice. It's just, I think we need, we can push to try and get through for technical review and see what we come out of technical review with. At that point, I might be a little firmer on saying we need to pick a couple and just stick with a couple. Because I really think we're going to hurt ourselves if we're trying to do all of this. It's one of those things where, I mean, Matt was talking about our comprehensive plan. In looking and reviewing all those grants, I never once looked at any agency's comprehensive plan. So I don't know where they rank this project. I don't even know if they rank this project. All they have to have is a comprehensive plan. I don't know that anybody at the RCO even checks to see what's in your comprehensive plan. They just want you to have it. So it's like, but I agree with Matt. We're going to address it and say, hey, pickleball, this is why we're doing it. We put 4 pickleball courts in and they're already maxed out. We painted them on our asphalt. I mean, to me, it's like, had we had known this when we were writing our plan, we would have put it in. So it's really just this, yeah, it's a crapshoot. We roll the dice and we see where we're at. I'm just putting it out there right now because going into this week, looking at not having numbers to put in these plans and going, I'm not even getting a quote until Thursday on the artificial turf. And one of the things, that scares me because I'm the one that enters in all that data. I'm the one that tries to make sure this grant matches that grant. And it's not as, a lot of the documents are simple, but we have to do applicant resolutions stating that we're applying, okay? Well, I filled all of these out, but then I had to redo them all. I realized that I put in the same resolution number, I just changed the name of the grant. So they're very similar, but sometimes they actually take more time than less because I have to sit there and go, what's the difference? What am I missing? What is here that's not here? And then I have to go in with costs. I literally put up both pickleball reports and went line by line the costs and made sure I had what's in this one is in this one, what's in this one is in this one, and it's the same all the way down. So there's a lot of dotting of I's and crossing of T's.
What do you need in terms of support for this first deadline?
For this, well, right now I'm just looking at getting the required documents in, and then I am meeting tomorrow with our grants manager to go through everything and go, what do I absolutely have to have by May 3rd? Mm-hmm. I want to get those done. I think maybe if I can get somebody on each, if I can get a PowerPoint presentation template out to everybody, and somebody on each committee could do the PowerPoint for me and put in the pictures and put in notes, that would help and address those items. But I mean, I've still got to write up the need statement, like, why do we need this? How are we, like, what the criteria are. So it's, yeah, it's a lot, and each one is, like, youth athletics facilities is slightly different than WWRP local parks requirements. So it's just all of that. It's, yeah, I need to delve into it more with our grants manager, and then I might be able to pass off some of this once I get rolling. But as soon as I can, don't worry, I'll send it out.
Doug, in the past, we've hired a project manager when we had new projects going on. Is that in the plan?
No. Nope. And I don't know, there's certain things we cannot have them pay for with the grants. So I don't know that we could say, we're gonna hire somebody to do this, and I will ask that of Allison tomorrow.
So, thank you.
Because construction is not your training, right?
So I was gonna say, if we, like you said, roll the dice, see what comes through from the technical review, if this all does go forward, and if all is awarded, then we can look at bringing in other resources to make this happen.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
What a horrible position to be in. That we would.
Yeah, I mean,
it would be wonderful. So
I just we have a fairly high success rate when we go in there. And that, while it's a good thing, it is also concerning when you look at the back end and go, wow, if I do this, if I'm on the same track record I've been on,
it'll shake out.
It'll shake out. It'll get to where it's going to get to. That's kind of where we are there. If you guys are comfortable with moving forward with that, I just wanted to put it on your radar minimally this week or this month because if we have problems, I'll be reaching out. Is everybody good with that?
Yes. I'd like to acknowledge that I understand the work that goes into that. I mean, my little work with grants, $700,000 grant that I facilitated, took a lot of time to write and go through as well. And I understand that, and I would offer whatever support I can give you in some of that. I've dutifully been taking notes on things that I have an interest in and that I can speak to. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but Doug, I know it's a lot of work, and yeah, it's a sad position to be in a place where you have all these wonderful projects that could really benefit the community. It's a double-edged sword.
How do you choose? All four of these projects to me are worthwhile and worthy and should be going on. And it's one of those where I'm sitting there going like,
absolutely.
Path of least resistance, whatever we're doing the best at, we go forward on. I don't know what else to do.
Can you float like a rank your order of preference Facebook poll or something? Of course, that could open up.
No, we don't want to open up that can of worms. No, because then if we do something like that, then we have to, Sky will be looking at the results for 3 hours going, well, how do we rank, and then we've got to bring it back and have a special meeting to kind of address. No, I think that takes up more time and does not help alleviate.
When you put out that question prior to the meeting, I was in the same place, and that is, I have a hard time because I find every one of those projects valid.
Yeah.
Again, 3 out of 4 of them are in our comp plan, and the one that is not in our comp plan, we are putting in because there is so much demand. So I think we already have our answers in regard to that.
We know what we're doing. Okay. So what I will need is I have resolutions 2022-01 through 2022-07 for the grant authorizations, applicant resolution authorization, which authorizes me to act on behalf of the board. I will pull up, I believe I have a copy of these. This is what it looks like. And this is what drove me nuts is I got through all of these, printed them all out, looked at them, and they were all 2022-01. And I was like, that's not going to work. So each one of these is the different grant. It'll all be different. 2022-1445 is the South Whidbey Pickleball Courts application for WWRP local parks. The grant resolution authorizes the person identified below to act as the authorized representative on behalf of our organization. Be it resolved, the organization still plan to attempts to apply for funding, assistance managed by the above projects, organization authorized the following persons, what my position is, to do grant application submission thereof, project contact, day-to-day administering of the grant, and communicating with the RCO grant agreement, so I get to sign it, agreement amendments, and property and real estate documents, notice of grant, deed of right, assignment of rights, that really won't apply. That's more with a property acquisition, but if anything does, you authorize me to deal with it. And then just organization to review the sample RCO agreement. We've already seen those, and I will bring them to you before I sign them anyways. Grant assistance is contingent on signed agreements. We knew that. Organization understands grant policies and requirements. Yeah, they're pretty standard. We've already done them. All of this is standard boilerplate. It's been in your board. It was sent out to everybody, so you should have had an opportunity to look at it. So these are only signed by the chair or by one representative, but it says where did you do it and when, and we've already put those in. So I just need resolutions 2022-01 through 2022-07 to be approved, and then I can move forward. And these I will need in order to actually apply for the grants. I have to upload these to each of the separate grant applications.
All right,
And do we need to read the full text of the resolutions, or?
No, we do not need to read them.
So is there any more discussion? I'm ready to make a motion to approve the resolutions if there are no other questions.
Go for it.
Okay, so I'll move to approve resolutions 22-01. Is that correct, Doug?
2022-01.
Sorry, 2022. I move to approve resolutions 2022-01, 2022-02, 2022-03, 2022-04, 2022-05, 2022-06, and 2022-07.
I will second that motion.
it has been moved and seconded to approve resolutions 2022-01, -02, -03, -04, -05, -06, and -07. Is there any further discussion before we vote?
No.
All right. We'll go ahead and vote then. All those in favor say aye.
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 Matt, aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion passes and the resolutions are approved.
So Jennifer, before you leave, I need you to sign those. Just a head up, we have a pending award of the $400,000 from the state budget for the Aquatic Wellness Center. Foundation members contacted me and we discussed the joint pool committee structure. And since the $400,000 will have to be administered by the district, the foundation, I recommended to the foundation that we restructure the committee as an advisory committee to the district as opposed to its current structure under the auspices of the foundation. That 2 voting members from our board, which would be our pool committee folks, Matt and Eric, and 2 voting members from their board would then act as an advisory group to this board with any other people that wanted to be on that committee or be available to that committee, being able to help and be there other than other board members, because that would be a quorum and we would be bad. But any other community members that are currently involved can stay involved, they just would not be a voting member. I would act as an ex officio board member on that and be on that board and be directly involved in it, since I have to, as a staff member, administer the $400,000. And I put in there that I could direct the committee, and then what I'm really meaning there is putting together the agenda, doing what I do here. Setting up the agenda, what we're working on, what we're thinking, and then the committee would then put that together, and then I would bring that back to the board and to the foundation for their
And the 4 members would be the voting members?
4 members would be the voting members.
And
So,
who are there?
I do not know yet, we have not created the committee, that I need to move in a second to create this committee.
No, I'm sorry, from the foundation.
Yeah, no, to your question, Jen, they have not named the 2 people yet. They're going to consider them. They're taking applications from within the committee or within the foundation board, and they're going to decide on the 2 nominees at their next meeting. So,
Thank you.
So yeah, so
However, at their last meeting, they did approve.
they approved this
this
structure,
plan.
this plan.
yeah. So this, if you remember, we signed an MOU with the foundation in May of 2021, June of 2021, and it outlines a committee structure with equal representation, mutual representation between the 2 bodies, and to be equal, it would be 2 and 2. So this makes sense and it aligns with that. And then bringing other resources along, to support things like grant applications and that kind of thing. What this really defines is it allows the foundation to work in kind of 2 primary lanes in the road in the project that are well aligned to the foundation structure and mission. And those 2 lanes are private fundraising. So the private capital campaign has a goal of raising $5 million in private capital through individual donors and through private foundations and sources, like that. That's lane 1. And then lane 2 is the bond Vote Yes campaign. The idea of a 2023 voted bond. They would lead the effort to where we're precluded from, the staff is precluded from doing anything other than providing factual information. This would let the foundation kind of run point on that program as kind of the second of the 2 lanes. And then the other 2 big lanes in the project have been the public fundraising portion. So the state capital budget, these RCO grants, the Department of Commerce grants, the federal budget applications would be in the lane of this committee and the district kind of on a leadership role. And then the issues with the site and the facility itself, the design that Doug was talking about and the septic and the water and all that stuff. So let the district kind of take point on those issues, public fundraising and the site and the building, and let the foundation take point in 2 lanes, the private fundraising and the Vote Yes campaign. So to me, it makes a lot of sense. It puts us where we're best aligned, and yeah, I think it's a great plan.
So we would need a motion.
Yeah. So if anybody got any questions, feedback, thoughts, and if not, then I'll make a motion to approve that as our plan. Okay. I'll move that we establish the joint committee as designated in the MOU of 2 park commissioners and 2 foundation representatives with Doug as an ex officio member.
Hang on 1 second. Okay.
Good, then I will second that motion.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to establish a joint committee as designated in the MOU as 2 foundation members and 2 SWPRD members, with Doug as the ex officio leader. Is there any?
Doug is an ex officio member, non-voting.
Thank you, as the ex officio member. Is there any discussion? All right, we'll move for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Jake, aye.
Matt, I.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion passes for establishing the joint committee.
Yeah, and Jen, I'll just to explain myself, since we were talking in the middle of the actual motion and vote. So the point about Doug as the leader, if you look at our org structure and our bylaws, you know, the board of directors is the decision-making authority, and Doug is the executive director and the administrative leader of the district working for the board. So to put Doug in a position, a formal position where he is directing the board, is contrary to the organization structure and the bylaws. So we just got to be careful about those kinds of situations. So that was the point I was trying to make there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And can I make one more point in this topic, Doug, the wellness center, about the federal funding application? So Jake, when you weren't here last year, maybe you were attending meetings at the time, there was a federal funding process that was opened up to us last year at this time by Congressman Larson's office, Legislative District 2, where something that was a process formerly known as earmarks was opened up to general applications, you know, formerly in the federal budget process where individual representatives could bring projects to the table and say, I want to improve the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, and I want to improve the Boys and Girls Club in Federal Way, and those things could get tucked into the budget as earmarks. They opened that up and made that process more public last year, and they gave it a different name. Because earmarks had gotten a negative connotation, as pet programs, special programs, so they called it community project funding, CPF, and each representative last year was allowed to nominate 10 projects into the process back in DC, and some number of those projects, 0 to 10, were then included in the federal budget in 2020, the fiscal federal budget in 2022. So we submitted last year to that, and we did not make the cut, and we were told we weren't close enough to the finish line. As Doug said, we weren't close enough to shovel ready, so we got considered, but we didn't get included. So this year, I renewed the application, and I talked to their office, and I made the point that, hey, the state is now in on the project. We've been funded, and all of a sudden they wanted to talk more. So the application is resubmitted, and the total application is for just under $1 million. And it's to cover the two projects, the two site, specifically called out the two site projects, the water system improvements and the septic system, adding up to a total of $970,000. So those two things are specifically in the funding application, and the initial cut is being done this month. And the initial feedback I got was that the staff from his local staff liaison and potentially Congressman Larson want to come visit the site. I think you hosted Congressman Larson a couple of years ago in the park for a visit.
Yep.
But he hasn't been back there since. Sounds like he'd like to come back, and this would be a chance for us to, give him a real perspective on the project. So I think it's the state funding at least gave them an idea that maybe we were further along. And so I think we have a decent chance, more to come, but I told their staff that Doug would be ready to coordinate a visit, and then we would stand up with Eric and I, with the foundation, Jen, anyone else who's interested in participating, if we can get the congressman there, even his liaison, who's kind of a key cog in the wheel. Anyway, progress there. We'll see. Last year, again, we didn't make the cut. So worst thing that could happen is we don't make the cut again this year, and then next year we'll apply again. So anyway, I just want to make sure you're aware that had happened, and that was a couple weeks ago.
Appreciate you catching me up to speed, Matt.
You're welcome.
All right, the next order of business is the Trustland Trails WTA comments update.
So back, I believe it was in November or December, the board tabled the western side trail with the directive to staff to go out and talk to Washington Trails or somebody else and get some feedback on what we were doing. Connected with WTA, they sent one of their project leads out, Richard, to kind of take a look at the site, walk the site with us. He then communicated back some of the questions, you know, that they asked were, you know, any steep slopes in the area, any steep slopes or, you know, environmental concerns, all those kinds of things along the proposed route. The gentleman came out, Richard, walked that trail and commented to Tom and myself while we were there that, you know, he thought it looked good, he thought it was set back well, said really if you don't have standard policies, and I said, well, the board has told us 50 feet plus or minus 10, this is 100 feet from the property line, so it meets that requirement. His comments were really that the trail's laid out pretty well from what he could see from the plan, but you know, he said the WTA doesn't like to make decisions and tell managing agencies what to do on their land or where to put a trail, but they didn't see any major problems with it. The one comment they did make is you know, we do have one single track trail out there already with the existing trail that was there. To do a single track trail here would make it harder to maintain and make it more difficult if we had mixed traffic on that trail. Equestrian, walker, coming together on a single track is a difficulty. So we have not yet said on any of our trails that this is not for equestrian, not for bicycling, it's all for everything. So if we want to make that one still a mixed use place, we might want to look at the idea of making that the same size as everything else there. He said that made sense. And then we've got the email that I shared in the board packet regarding all the information. I did have a meeting with Jennifer. Matt was unable to attend, and talk through everything and answer questions. So that's what we did. The grade there is not significantly severe on any part of that I remember when I walked it, and it doesn't go as far as we can find into any sensitive areas. So steep slope, wetlands, there was none of that. So it should meet everything that they're talking about, but we have not yet gone to county for their approval because this was the first step we were taking before going to county. So if the board wants us to take the next step would be talking to the county, seeing if we need permits, and we would then have to come to them with, we're going to make it a single track, like the double track like everything else out there. What are we doing with this trail and how are we doing it? And this is specific to that one side trail. We did not do anything with the trail that we had talked about, little spur that went down into the wetlands. That's something that the board didn't have an issue with, but we needed to do some work with the county because it is going into a sensitive area.
And just to be clear, nothing's changed. I walked that, or should I say blaze that in November.
Nothing has changed. We have not gone out and moved anything. So just reporting back to the board on that and looking for any discussion, any kind of direction from the board as to should we pursue anything further? Should we table this again? Should we go to the county? What are our next steps?
So for a review of the December 2021 trails recommendation that we discussed and agreed upon was that the Maxwell Trails Park would take first priority, Trustland would take second priority, and within Trustland it was agreed by the board that it would be a class 2 single track trail using a trail volunteer group. So we have some information to go on thanks to the WTA. We did not get into the discussion about whether or not a naturalist was needed. Not sure if that's a cart and a horse thing with the county or where that lies. But where it was left in December and agreed upon was that it would take second place to Max Welton and would be a class 2 single track trail. Anything to add, Matt? Did we lose him?
I still have 3 listed. He's still there.
Yeah, sorry, I'm still there. Yeah, and yeah, I apologize. That was the day that I just lost and missed the meeting, and I completely support what you're saying, Jen. I think that exactly captures what we had talked about in our intent coming out of the the review of trust land and the Max Walton Trails review. So I think I support your recommendation there. I think that's the path we should take.
And so, to be clear, the access to Max Walton Trails is what is currently under site plan review when I'm waiting for the document to come back on. So we are moving ahead on that. That is, well, as soon as I receive that document, we'll know where that is. But that's gone through the county process already, so it is already probably 5 to 10 steps ahead of where we would be moving forward on anything there. And likely, either way, if we're doing it or if a crew is doing it as was directed in December, it would not happen right away anyways, even if we had go ahead. We still have to build that crew, work with them, probably some sort of a memorandum of understanding with them. They organize volunteers, and we've worked to try and find a pilot project. This could be that pilot project. But we need to get an agreement in place with them. So there's a lot of steps before construction would actually happen. I just want to keep this rolling and moving forward so that we come to a final decision and we go, yes, it's on the docket, no, it's off the docket, and yes, we're moving and this is where we're moving to.
So proceeding with the county and involving a potential naturalist at some point is still considered information gathering.
Proceeding with the county would be almost to the point of going for permits. We don't know that we need them, but we need to discuss that first. So it would be a discussion with the county to determine if we need permits. And then if we need permits, we would then pursue permitting. But once we pursue permitting, we're looking at going after constructing a trail. That is no longer in the, now the county might say, I don't know that we need a naturalist from the county's perspective. The county is not going to look at it that way. They're going to look at how many acres are we clearing, grading. Do we need to? Are there sufficient? Are we doing it in a steep slope, which we're not? Are we doing it in a wetland, which we're not? So it's going to be basically the amount of clearing grade that we're doing along that trail is what's going to determine whether we need a permit or not. I doubt highly that we will be asked to do anything other than provide information on.
And also keeping in mind that when they go into their little secret folder and determine whether or not there are any eagles' nests or owls' nests there that we aren't aware of.
When I walked it, I thought it looked like a nice, very nice layout, and I didn't see any significant drainage issues. I have some experience in trail construction, so that stuff would have jumped out at me right away if it looked like a horrible path, but it was very pleasant, and I thought it was very respectful of our park and the distance from our neighbors. And to me, it seemed like it would be a benefit to the community as a whole going forward.
From what I remember, there were a couple of spots where you could see some of the neighbors' houses. It seemed a little close. I know everything's been measured, but I do remember a couple of sight lines that I felt were a little close. And I think because of that, I'm still really, if we were to go ahead with the trail there, I still think it should be single track. But what the WTA says about, having different uses, you know, I agree, it would be kind of weird to have all of the trails be mixed use, except for this one. So, I don't know if we really need that trail. I think, you know, that could be confusing for the users there. I still feel like having that done is not nearly as important as focusing on developing the Maxwellton trails.
Oh, no, totally agree.
You know, I just,
And that's what we had discussed as well
Yeah.
back in November and December was, is there a demand for another trail at that park? Right, so as someone who walks it on a very regular basis, mostly in the morning, I will say, I'm not generally there in the afternoon, but I don't often encounter other people. As far as mixed use, the existing single track, which is Mossy Way, if I remember correctly, is clearly used by our equestrian friends. So that's not an issue, but there's evidence that there are.
Well, and that the trail we're talking about, the existing single track portion of that trail has historically been used by the equestrians coming from that side of the property, right? Don't we have that from our previous conversations?
The single track we're talking about is the one up at the front that goes from the parking lot over
Towards
around towards the out and back trail that was there when we first opened.
Yeah, no, I'm saying for the portion of the proposed trail that is in existence, the exigent portion of the proposed trail has been used by equestrians for a long time.
Correct.
Yeah, the lady up the hill from there.
Yeah.
Does have, but it's also only been available or only goes up to her house. So it does get used by equestrian a lot, but it's really only going to her house and back, and it has a sign that says private property, so it's not.
Right. No, sure. I'm just saying in terms of possible uses, it's, you know, it's suitable for that. It's proven to be suitable for that over time.
So the one caution I will put out there is thinking about the trail that goes across the front of the property from the parking lot over to the out and back. That trail, while it is single track, has places where somebody can step off because there's not understory, there's not ferns, there's not all the stuff that's along where we're planning that new trail. So if we did that, what we probably have to do is put in a couple of carve outs here or there as a single track and say, here's a place where somebody can stand, here's a place where somebody can stand if there's two people coming along the trail at the same time. It also is going to be need to have a trail steward group that maintains it and is open during the growing season because it's going to get overgrown. And our staff, we don't have the bandwidth with 3 guys to keep that open. So, so what I'm kind of hearing, and I'm just going to summarize, is to take this to the county, ask some questions, find out where we're going, and then maybe bring this back once I find out if we need permits or not, if they want a naturalist or not, and gather some more information on that end of it, or table it.
I mean, I personally support that approach that you just described. Go to the county, investigate, see what feedback they provide us. I think Jen, as you described, our plan was to prioritize the other property, which I think sounds like we're doing, and also to be methodical about this and not rush to any decision. Or, and it's clear we've got, you know, there are pros and cons to both sides of this. So I think learning more from the county is a good additional methodical step. And if we end up needing to bring a naturalist to the property, that's another methodical step. I think we're doing our due diligence, and then we can come to a reasoned decision one way or the other once we have that additional information. Just my opinion.
Any other discussion? Okay. So do we need anything formal?
I don't need anything formal. I just want to make sure everybody's okay with that approach.
Yes.
I'm seeing heads nodding.
Aye.
Okay. All right, that's what I will do. I will approach them on that. If I can find somebody at the county that still works in planning.
After you get the grant submitted.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I believe that wraps up unfinished business. The next order of business is new business, Freeland Hall opportunity.
Okay, well, I was approached, actually by the port, and they had been approached by the county about Freeland Hall. And the county asked if the port wanted to take over Freeland Hall. So Freeland Hall, as it currently sits, is owned by the county. It sits on the property shown on the screen, and I'll go through that, just drag. So sits on the property. It is owned by the county. This is Freeland Hall here. This would be the property. And what they're doing is looking to divest themselves completely of the property. They do not want to own it. They want somebody else to own it. As it currently is operated, the county owns it, and it is operated by, I believe it's called the Holmes Harbor Activities Club.
Yeah.
And they run it, rent it out for events. So when Stan at the port.
Doug, quick question. Did they take the revenue from those events that they run and rentals that they do, or does that feed to the county?
No. But let me go through it all. So I said, well, I mean, are they looking at keeping the Holmes Harbor, Activities Club running it? And he said, I don't think so. So I said, well, I'm willing to talk to him. Talked to Fred at the county, and then Sky, myself, Tom, and Jennifer and Krista joined us, and we went out there and met Fred and Jan from the county over there, walked through it. They are, so the logic of the county is as follows. They do not want to be in the facility rental business. They are not, that's not their role. They own this property, they don't want to own it anymore. They are looking at giving this to someone. When we initially talked, Sky and I got a little bit jazzed about it as a programming space. Now, we can't do sports in there, but we could do any arts, any dance, any theater, any crafting, anything like that. Dog nose work if we wanted to, anything could be in that space during the week, running programs, and then on the weekends, it could be rented out for events. The question really becomes, it's over 100 years old as a building. That's why I had Tom there, maintaining this. It's, what did we say, like 3 acres?
Oh, I thought it was almost 4.
No,
Was it
yeah,
4 and a half?
Yeah.
So it's almost 4.5 acres, I believe. It doesn't look like bigger than, yeah, it's probably about 4.5. So it would be mowing, it would be internal maintenance, and we don't have an internal maintenance group. So it would require contracting with companies, contracting with plumbers, contracting, and that could be an ongoing contract where we just say, we've got an ongoing contract with you. If we have a plumbing issue, we call you, you come out and charge us a standard rate. Those kinds of things. Older buildings have headaches. But when I spoke to Fred about that at our meeting, he literally said, we're planning on updating everything, all the deferred maintenance needs to be done. The door handles, the flooring, the roof he was going to check on, all of it. They did not want to hand us off a lemon. And then he also said, and I said, well, we as a funding would not even be able to look at this until next year. And he said the county would be willing to fund us taking it over until next year. This is how much they want this out of their area. They are willing to pay us to take it. They were even talking about adding Freeland Park in, and we said, hell no. Because that park floods every year, and we don't want, and also, the other thing that I told them at the meeting is, there's already 2 entities involved in there. If we take over Freeland Park, that's 3. So this would be, if we were to decide to pursue this, the property, if we went forward, would become South Whidbey Parks and Recreation District property. The park district would own it. We would not be managing somebody else's property. It has a commercial grade kitchen in it. So it could be used for catering for events. That's what they've done. There's not, I thought about the idea of maybe we could divest ourselves of having to rent the space and move our offices there. There's not space for that. It doesn't work. And the bigger negative would be we'd be far away from our center park, which is where we want to be. So there's a lot. We really, what I kind of wanted to bring up, and I'll let Sky and Jennifer and Krista, since they're here, talk as well, but the one thing that Tom brought up when he and I talked afterwards is he came in and he goes, so can we have when you buy a house, you do a home inspection. Maybe we do a home inspection and see what kind of issues we're inheriting.
I've already been considering that, given my resource pool, and would see if I could get someone to either do it for a very nice rate or maybe even volunteer their expertise for said report.
Okay. But that's something that Tom suggested, and I was like,
One is the idea, it sounds like it is the idea that that would be done either by us or by them, and that would feed this fix up and repair plan, so that those issues would be addressed in advance of any handoff.
I think that's something that, just speaking from an industry standpoint, that we would want to be in charge of that inspection process, so that Tom and whomever else could be there to ask the appropriate questions. I don't want to
Got it.
Because Fred is certainly putting out something that is an incredible opportunity if it pans out that way. But we need to do our own due diligence. We need to ask our own questions, and we need to have that report, not just what the county says. Oh, this is what the report said, and we'll take care of this. We need to own that report.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. That sounds fantastic.
What are Island County's other options?
I honestly don't know that they have any. I don't know that there's anyone else. So the group that the lady was there trying to clean up from a wedding when we were there, they're like 5 people, and 3 of them I think are the same family.
Yeah, Andy Campbell's family.
It's the Campbell's family and 2 other people that are on this. And I know they've been running it for years because I inquired about it at one point and was like, oh no, they've been running it forever. And it's just like, okay.
Do they still want to?
I don't know. But the county does. So my thing is, I don't want to own it and have them run it. If we're owning it, we're running it, and we're doing it differently. Because then, right now, if they're running it, all the big stuff is on the county. So he literally said anything up to $2,500, they'll just fix and repair in their budget. Anything beyond that, it's on the county. The county pays for it.
Right.
That's what their agreement says, and their agreement sold that he was what spurred this was he went in to renegotiate their agreement after I think about 30 years, and looked at it and was like, well, we're not doing this. We don't want to do this anymore. So they would no longer be involved. We would be running it. At some point, we would probably need to hire somebody, either full or part-time, to manage programs there and facility rentals there. And it's just going to necessitate that.
So is that another full-time programs manager? Is it a subordinate to Sky? Is it, who knows?
Who knows? The structure would have to be determined. It would be probably working in close contact, if not under Sky's supervision, I would initially look at it probably as a part-time that worked 3 days a week, maybe like Friday, Saturday, Sunday to be there for the big events, and then programmed the rest of the week. And then when we're here during the week, we can unlock, lock, or set up a system by where we have keys for our programmers to go in there and do things, and then probably a cleaning service. But that's, I mean, all of that is really up in the air. And I kind of want Sky to comment. You know, the only other real concern that came up when we were there was ADA, because looking at that building, it's 100 years old, and everybody's probably been in there, but if you haven't, the main floor is the whatever it is, theater stage floor with the, it's like an old, it's like my gymnasium at my elementary school was, right? There's the wood floor, and then it's got the stage at the end. And if you need to go to the bathroom, you have to go down this set of stairs to go to the bathroom. Well, that's not ADA. So the way they've kind of bridged that is you have to go outside, down a ramp, down the side of the building to get to that entrance. It's really, while it meets probably the rules, it is not really inclusive. And the only way to do that would be to create restrooms that were on the same floor, that were ADA accessible. And there's not really a way to do that. So I don't know if selling this to us as a public entity, or selling, not selling, they're not asking for any money. As a matter of fact, when he first contacted me, he said maybe it comes with some money. Like, that's what I'm getting from them. They don't want this. Now maybe that should be, instead of raising interest with me, raising red flags. But looking at where we're at with programming space, I mean, we're sitting in our programming space that we own, or that we control. We don't even own this. So, Sky, any thoughts, any comments?
The space. Like, just the fact that I've had people that have approached wanting to offer Tai Chi classes. You know, we have to do yoga in the park in the summertime, but like once the weather turns sour, you know, September through now, you know, we're having to basically rent out any space if we want some at the community center. It's not really cost effective for something that's just like a smaller drop-in class, more enrichment classes. Like the kitchen gives a whole new facet to what you can offer, especially seniors and kids. But like yeah, thinking of my previous work within senior services, you know, they've gotten rid of all of their in-person program. They don't deal with any of the enrichment or recreation classes anymore. So there's a gap for those Tai Chi, seated yoga, dance classes, all of that. And you know, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. is usually that sweet spot for a lot of those.
Yep. My first thought when I heard about it was, wow, you know, what an opportunity if it worked with Tom and maintenance and taking care of the facility, and if the building wasn't, you know, about ready to fall down. I've gone to quite a few weddings there. It's a nice space. I feel like it's something great that the community has. I know it's been kind of difficult to rent. Talked to a couple people, and I think the parks could streamline that and make it easier for someone to potentially rent it out. And then, like Sky was saying, doing activities during the week. I mean, yeah, there's no real indoor space here. There's even a stage there that you could do a small, I should say concert, but a little music venue or something like that.
Definitely can.
We'd have to get rid of that old piano and that old
organ thing
that's out there, because those are garbage. But yeah, no, you could do. I mean, they do. Mr. South would be there. You could do performances there. We've got Magic Camp that we can move over there, and they could do their final performance on a big stage. You know,
the wreath making
would be over there. Anything and everything. You know, just nothing that, unfortunately, nothing that you throw a ball around or kick a ball around or, or shoot a hockey puck around does not fit in that space because there's windows there and it would just not work.
When I originally heard about this, I was thinking about, and Matt, maybe you can jump in on this one, but correct me if I'm wrong, when the survey went out about the pool, and I believe that was the survey, people in Freeland and some of the northern areas felt disconnected from South Whidbey, like all the actions here. And that was my first gut instinct. I'm either in favor or not in favor of it, but I just think about that you're providing an area north of Langley for people in Freeland and other.
Yeah, no, for absolute sure. And it was, yeah, and that first came up when we did the needs assessment survey before the last comp plan. And then in this comp plan, if you look, there's an inventory of park facilities, and we inventory all the facilities in the district, whether they're operated by us, owned by us, administered by us or not. And these were identified as potential ways that we could extend our service footprint to cover more citizens, right? And so, yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I echo what Jake said. To me, this is a once in a generation opportunity, and it's one that if we pass on it, will never come to us again, or will never come again. And I think the idea of stewardship of a place like this is one of the important elements to me. I mean, it's a historical place. It's not just the building, but the place is historic. It's it's something that, in my personal opinion, which needs to be preserved for the public benefit. And we have a chance to do that. So to preserve this for the public benefit, to me is a overriding reason why we should do it, in my opinion.
I walked around after everybody left and dog tested it, and it's heavily used, very heavily used, and it had been years since I walked it, and I was really happy to be back there again. But with that, there was, a dog can that was completely overflowing, and people had started, piling dog bags around it. And so I don't know if that's because it was right after a holiday weekend. I don't know what the Island County schedule is, but just so we know, it is heavily used, and it is going to take resources to keep it better than how I saw it that day. Um, just as long as we're clear-eyed about that. And yeah, it is historic, and I just have some concern for this Holmes Harbor Activity Club. I understand that there have been some issues working with them, the community working with them, but they have been taking care of this space for a long time. And we need to find out, are they ready to not have that responsibility? Or maybe we have to come up with some way to bridge them, keep them involved in some way. I don't want them to feel like they're being pushed out because there could possibly be new owners.
No, I think that's brilliant, and that absolutely we should do that.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. I don't know how to keep them involved, or I mean, Fred was specifically, when we were at that meeting, there was the lady cleaning up, and he was specific to me. He said, I didn't want to have her here. I wanted not to have this conversation yet until we know what we're doing. If we take it on, I do not want to have a contract with them to run it exclusively. And I don't know that they are going to be satisfied. I don't know, but I don't know that they're going to be satisfied with anything less than that. And that's, I don't know what we would offer them. Because for instance, if we're taking on the facility and all its maintenance and all its cleaning and all its other stuff, then we're taking all the revenue. I mean, we're not gonna give them the weekends, which is revenue generating time for weddings, and say, you can have the weekends and we'll take the weekends. I get what you're saying, but it doesn't to me pencil out. I'm questioning
Yep.
in
In
just
all?
general, and to me, when you put that aspect in, I don't know how to deal with that.
I'd like to point out, we don't know what their motivations have been.
Right.
Like, why have they done this for so long? Maybe it does come down to the historical significance. Maybe they just need to be recognized for all of the years that they've put in with some sort of, I don't know, plaque or award or I don't know, but we need to take the time to ask them why. And you know, figure out some way to go forward.
Well, and you said, and I think, Krista, the word you used was bridging. To me, that's how you do it, Doug. I mean, you were just talking about there being at least some kind of a relatively lengthy process to do any kind of a handover because of our budget cycle, because of the need to do the inspections and upgrades and fixes and all that. So this is not something that's going to happen. Even if we said, let's go full speed ahead, it's still going to be a year or something like that, right? So the idea of bridging across that time, doing like you're talking about, Krista, and by the time we come out of it and we are operating it and owning it, then at that point we're free and clear to Doug what you're describing. But we've got a year to get there in a way that respects all the time that they've put into it and the history and their desires and all that kind of thing, in a way that I think we can bridge that with and meet both objectives.
Yeah.
So my thought, and I'm not looking to pass the buck here, but this to me is a discussion that Fred and I need to have, and then Fred needs to have with them. Like, I need to say to Fred, we want to make sure they're not going to be upset by this. They're not going to be put out by this. He is their landlord. He's the one that's basically controlling that. And Matt, the timeline can be probably as I could call them tomorrow and they'd say, yeah, we'll pay for everything. Here's the hell, it's yours. It's not a timeline where I don't want it that fast. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be a year. It could be 3 months. But I want to do our due diligence on the operations and to know that if we decide that this is the right path, the board puts that down there, that we know we're going down the right path. We did the same thing when we talked about taking on the middle school. And when we looked at it, I was like, there's no way. I mean, it's got some great features, but you want me to take the whole nut and not just, the jewel over here. There's some stuff there that I was like, no, we're going to end up getting hit with boiler replacement or something. And I just didn't want to go down that road. And I mean, there's some great features there, especially in the gymnasiums, that were amazing. And it was just like, I can't do it. This, I want to do that same due diligence, take the time. I love the idea of Jennifer talking to a home inspection person and having them come out and take a look at it. And, I know if those fees need to be paid, which absolutely is fair, we will pay them. And we'll take that on to make sure this is the right step. The person I feel should talk initially, and maybe that's a discussion he has with them first, and then we have with them to make sure to verify that, hey, we just want to make sure you're cool. And
I'm assuming they're a non-profit.
Yes.
It looks like they have,
There's a
bylaws.
But is there some sort of compensation, even if it's nominal, going out to these 7 people? And is it helping?
Maybe it's free chair yoga for a year. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't know. Don't make any assumptions.
So we don't. Well, yeah, I don't know their motivation, so I can't speak to it. I just know that. I mean, looking at these numbers, they're not doing it. Like, I put the numbers up there. That's what they did in 2019, which their net income was under $10,000. They're not making bank on this if they are doing something. Their expenses, if you look at their expenses line, their total expenses, so even if they're paying themselves, they're not paying themselves that much.
Right.
It is not a money-making entity, I don't think, for them. I don't think that's their motivation. And I don't think, judging by what they do there, to me, that's not how I would set it up for a money-making venue. There are, I mean, obviously the numbers we're looking at are COVID years, so 2020 was a sucky year. But I think that, yes, I agree, Chris, that the discussion needs to happen. I just want to make sure we're not looking at going back to, we're owning it and somebody else is running it for us.
So from just standing there and letting Eileen talk, if it was a labor of love, I think the love is definitely waning considerably. When I was trying to kind of find out about weddings and that sort of stuff, I didn't get an answer about the club, but I sure got a heck of a lot of answers about everybody else who has wedding venues. And the places she was naming off are certainly offering a whole lot more than the hall can. But also at a different price as well, right? I mean, if you want to pay right down to the fork, you can at some places. So I didn't feel like there was a ton of love on her part. I think she was tired.
Yeah. I rented it, and one of my best friends rented it, and it was very difficult at times to get calls back and to get the planning going, and I felt like when I heard about this opportunity, I thought that the parks could run it better if the bones and everything else checked out on it. I think some new blood being pumped into it could be a really good thing while keeping the historic value of it and the community features and a rental space at a reasonable price.
Due diligence, right? So it's 1918, something like that. I don't know if that's truly old enough to get on any sort of a registry or anything where we could get funding for having a little historical marker plaque thingamabob on it that says you get money just for maintaining this place.
It's possible.
It may also limit what you can do with it.
But given that it's open to the community, I think that ADA thing would be pretty easily accomplished.
You might be able to get funding for a stair lift to go down those stairs. But
again, why wouldn't Island County have?
It might be such an old building that it does not have to go up to that standard. You know, it's grandfathered in with its ramp outside. Not to say that we wouldn't do that, and that to me is, you know, just coming from conference where everybody's talking not just about being ADA accessible, but being inclusive, which is a great goal. There's a balance there. We're not going to get that place inclusive, but we can get it more accessible. And it's a question mark as to what that costs and how we do it. The idea of getting on historical registry and looking into that is a good one. I think we want to look at exactly what we just talked about, which is with the good comes the bad. So with the funding comes the you can't touch this and you can't do that. And this outside of this building has to be maintained with this specific type of, and that costs 10 times more, but we're going to give you $50 for it. So there's things we want to make sure that we know all sides of when we're going in, or as many as we can find out and determine. We don't want to, we don't want to be blindsided if we can avoid it. But yeah.
Well, and Doug, and I don't know if you talked about this. I just got dropped off the line for about 30 seconds, but I'd like to do a review of the kind of a little pro forma financial with Carrie, and just walk through these numbers and kind of scrub what you've been able to gather and what we know. I think that'd be a good exercise to go through too.
Well, and so looking at with these numbers that I put up on the screen, I don't know that I take them as what we should base this on. I think what we need to do is maybe not sit down with Carrie, but sit down with Sky and Carrie and look at what could we do with this.
Oh yeah. No, for sure. I'm just saying we have some numbers as a starting point. That pro forma financial would do all that. So yeah, absolutely.
Put that together and in kind of conjunction with that. So yeah, if you want to take that fork of this with Carrie and Sky and start looking down that road, that would be a good road to look down. I can work with Jennifer and get the home inspection done. Look at talking to Fred about the group that's managing it now, Holmes Harbor group that's managing it now, and make sure that he's talking to them about where this goes and what's next, and that they're okay, and that when they're done with that, we can then have that conversation with them as well. And go, you know, we're cool, okay. Because I do agree with Jake. I mean, these guys are volunteers. If they're making money, they're not making the time. So I agree with Jake. We could certainly generate, I would think, more revenue. However, we're also employees. So we're paid. So yeah, they could come to our office here and book it, and if they called us, we're going to call back quickly. Usually I return calls at the latest within 24 hours. So we're also paid staff, so if something happens in the middle of the night, we answer the phone. Whereas volunteers, I mean, the only other concern that came up was that the septic system sometimes gets overwhelmed when there's 200 people in there. And I'm like, well, why don't you build a bigger septic system? It seems to make a lot of sense that if you have a building that has a capacity of 240 people, you build a septic system that can handle an event with 240 people. But Guy and I have kind of talked that through and gone, well, you know, maybe what we do is if you're having an event with over 150 people, part of your charge is you have to have 2 porta potties brought on site.
Yeah, and just as a sidebar, I heard the question come up about why. I can just say from the first time this came up, and I can't remember, Doug, if this was before you got here or not, but the county came to us, it's got to be 10 years ago now, with this idea. And where it came from is they do their comprehensive plan just like we do our comprehensive plan, and their parks comprehensive plan in that cycle, they made a formal decision that they were going to no longer do as a mission active recreation, and that they were going to focus on what they call passive recreation. So meaning they're going to maintain, you know, a property that's suitable for something like bird watching from a fixed position, not like a bunch of trails so you can walk around and watch birds, but just you can recreate passively. So anything that was active, like Freeland Hall, like Dan Porter Park, like Dave Mackey Park at Max Welton, all those things were immediately surplus because they were active recreation properties, and that was something that they decided formally and put in their comp plan that they did not want to do anymore. So that's where it first came from originally, the idea that these things could be surplus. At the time, it didn't have anything to do with, not anything, but that was their primary motivation. They just did not want to be in that business anymore. They didn't think it was a core mission of county parks.
No, and when we talked with Jan there, just to kind of wrap this up, when we talked with Jan and with Fred, we were talking about the programming we do, and county does not do any programming, so they won't use that space in the day when nobody's around, whereas we would.
Yeah.
So
exactly right.
I think we're all on the same page. So yeah, if you wanna, if, I'm just gonna sum it up here. If Matt and Carrie and Sky will start down the road of a pro forma on the business aspect of that and what that looks like. And I would even put in there maybe looking at, part-time kind of, recreation assistant over there.
Yep, yep.
And then maybe 3 days a week, and then look at, and then I will look at with, Jennifer and I will get together on a inspection. I'll reach out to Fred, and then I'll start to look into, because it is on, I believe, on the county's historical register. He said something about it was on with the county, it's a historical building.
Oh,
But it's not on with the state. So I want to look at what that means and if that's actually true, because that was just Fred saying that. I haven't confirmed it. So I will reach out to Fred on that, and as well as about talking to the Holmes Harbor people. I'll say that the board has interest. We've just got to pencil out some numbers. I'll let them know that we're going to want to do a home inspection, and I'll contact him for that. That make sense?
Yep.
Can I say one thing about the financial side of it with kind of my programming hat on? I think it'll be really easy, and we've already discussed it a lot, how really easy to fill it up, especially on the weekends with weddings and memorials and things like that. And I think perhaps Rose Hill Center over in Mukilteo, anyways, maybe allowing space for programs for our own, making sure that we plan ahead. And it will be probably a financial loss. I mean, I don't like, for maybe a daddy-daughter ball, whatever, on a weekend. So planning ahead to reserve some weekend time, some space for our own activities, even though a wedding would bring in a lot more money, of course. So just planning ahead for a little bit of loss, I guess, potential revenue.
Well,
Keep doing our other mission.
so I wouldn't anticipate that we mark off every weekend for a wedding or a big event. I think that, you're gonna have our events that we're gonna want to put in there, daddy daughter ball immediately in mind. We could do, winter, if we do concerts in the park in the summer, we could do concerts inside in the winter. We could, you've got groups that want to rent it, like, can't remember who it is that puts on Mr. South Whidbey, but Mr. South Whidbey's there every year. And all of those things happen in our community. Yeah, I think it's Friends of Friends. But all of those things happen, and we do have to plan for them. And we need to contact those community members that are with those organizations once we take it over. Hey, we're still going to do this with you. We're still going to work with you. And then we can establish, like we do with our fields and our facilities, resident rates for resident, for-profit, individual, and then non-resident rates for people who are coming over, for this, that, or the other thing. Kind of set those up. It is, when I first heard it, and it wasn't brought to me as, hey, we want you to take on this park and this park and this park, and there's no money. In our first discussion, Fred said to me, and maybe it just comes to you, or maybe it comes to you with some cash. I was like, okay, so we're serious now. So I guess this is what happens when you stop talking about it and ignore them for a while. Anything else on that? Not good. Okay.
No, hey, one quick question so Carrie, do you need me to send a voucher approval email from my remote participation status today or not?
No.
The ones who are present have signed the blanket voucher approval, and that's.
And do you need me to stop by and sign them tonight or tomorrow morning?
No.
We don't need you to.
We have enough signatures.
Okay.
You can sign it if you want.
All right, got it. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. I have nothing else unless the board has anything else.
I have one last thing, and it's quick. I have a science teacher who wants to send out, so he has sent out some pictures already, would like to create a solar walk And if you don't know what that is, that's a solar system walk on a walking trail. Could be Max Walton Trail, could be existing trails, and they're little tiny signs. They're not real intrusive, with the equitable distance from planet to planet. And they've done this like in the Confluence Park, I believe in Wenatchee has it, and there's a couple parks in Washington that have done that. So as a project with his class, he just wanted me to throw it out there. But I just want to give you a heads up. If I send out some pictures, you can kind of check it out. Maybe we can talk about it at the next meeting.
Talk about it at the next meeting. Maybe Eric, you and I can connect with him and Tom.
He's in the beginning stages.
Okay.
He just wanted me to throw it out to you,
Sure.
see if the board would be interested in something like that. And so that's why I thought we could just get the ball rolling.
Sure.
Instead of me just sending pictures, you would know it.
We know what we're getting in pictures. Then we're
There
not
you
looking at it going, "What the heck is Eric saying?"
Exactly.
So remember, he needs to send them, you can't broadcast to the group.
Right, I send them to him.
Send them to me and I'll.
I understand that. That's
Okay,
why
so-
I was addressing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I got it.
And I have just an FYI, so evidently there's going to be a Lone Lake information table. Water quality experts from DNR, 2 of them will be hosting an information table on Earth Day at Lone Lake. So if you have any questions about Lone Lake or water quality, please visit their information table this Friday, April 22nd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Try to swing by, but no promises.
I think I might be busy the next few weeks, but I'll see if I can sneak out for a bit. Anybody else?
All right, this meeting is adjourned at 8:26.
Right on time. Did you get a chance to talk to Matt about the adjacent property? You had sent it on to Matt, myself, and Doug, and you haven't approached that property owner.
No,
This conference is no longer being recorded.
I
Okay,
read
thanks,
it.
Matt. Have a good night.
I
read
was
what
asking if
Doug
you
sent
had
on.
gone any further in that.
All right, see you guys. Thank you for tolerating the crazy dial and the background noise.
That's enough. I'm fine. Wanted to make
Yeah,
sure
my
that-
last email was,
that there was
here's the
nothing else.
information, here's who owns it.
Yep. I saw
She
it.
lives over, I gave the address and all that, Teresa, and,